Welcome to the Passionate Dentist Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Bilal Saib, also known as Dr. B. And this is episode number 40.
The most essential dental knowledge from the most inspiring people in dentistry. Join Dr. B on today's Passionate Dentist.
Our special guest today is Andre Shirdan. Andre is from Philadelphia and studied fine arts and design. After years in high-end retail sales and customer service, his brother-in-law, a local dentist, asked him to help with his practice, and he got hooked on dentistry. This year, Andre celebrates 25 years of helping practices create systems for treatment planning, team training, goal attainment, and technology integration. He was the founder of The Systems, a dental practice management training and consulting firm that created the CREW, or CREW, training process, and was contributing editor of the company's Dental Life, Dynamic Dental Systems, and HMS, and the periodontal protocol StatCK. His presentations have informed and entertained hundreds of audiences across the country while motivating practices to generate better results and creating fluent processes. Andre, welcome to our show.
Thanks so much, Dr. B.
All right, so Andre, I know I read your beef bio here, but we want to hear it more from you. We'd like to get to know what you're going to talk to us about today in more detail, but we also want to hear more about you personally, and just so we can get to know you on a personal level. So can you share with us?
Sure. Back in the 80s, I was selling very high-end clothing. I mean, like Yves Saint Laurent, Armani, and Versace. And during that process, I was using sales techniques like the LAIR technique, which is listen, acknowledge, explore, respond. But I was also getting some really good customer service training through Ritz-Carlton, Neiman Marcus, and taking some Disney Institute courses. I was doing about $750,000 in sales. So at that time, I was probably doing about the same amount in production that most of the dentists were doing in a monthly basis. So about that much. And then in 1986, my family dentist married my sister.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a few years later, he came to me and asked me if I could, you don't see it, but I'm doing air quotes, help him with his business. And I never looked back. I never looked back at retail because I just fell in love with dentistry. Fell in love with the processes. I fell in love with the patient care. And thankfully, my brother-in-law is a CE junkie.
Oh, wow.
And I trailed along with him on classes from beg technique orthodontics to placing Gore-Tex during osseous surgery, to management by statistics from Sterling. You know, he spent tons of money, and I just sort of went along for the ride. His buddy started hearing about what I was doing with his practice, and they started asking me for help. And I had to figure out a way to deposit the checks, so I created the company, The Systems. And that's where I got started. And over the course of the next 12 years, I spent 200 days a year either on the road or on a plane, talking to doctors, speaking in front of audiences, taking my sales techniques, protocols, customer service training, and incorporating it into the dental office.
So, Andre, can you tell us a little bit more about what you do exactly in the dental profession? I know you gave us a good overview a few minutes ago, but I want to know more about what kind of consulting do you do, what kind of teaching do you do, and I also want to hear about the StatCK. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Sure. For the last 10 years, I've been coaching and training doctors on technology integration with Eaglesoft, digital imaging, CEREC, CAD/CAM. But I've done a lot of keynote speeches, national dental meetings, do a lot of lecturing. Anytime anybody would give me a soapbox, I'm standing on it. What I've been doing also is I see the world in quads now for some weird reason. I see dentistry as 4 parts of a whole. As an example, like in technology, I see the digital documentation, the digital diagnosis, the digital scanning, the digital restorations. I see sales as in listening, acknowledging, exploring, and responding. And I see staffing as challenges, as reflections, as energies, as winning. What we came up with on the periodontal side was the StatCheck system. And the StatCheck system is a 4-parter. It's a part of where we look at, and actually Leanne Brady said this on one of your programs, there is a philosophy of dentistry We saw it as a philosophy of care. There's a diagnosis, there's a treatment, and there's a next visit that needs to happen in perio. So let me give a little history on StatCheck.
Yeah.
Back in 1977, the World Health Organization introduced the CPI-TN, which was the Community Periodontal Index for Treatment Need. Then in 92, the ADA and the AAP introduced the PSR, the Periodontal Screening and Recording. In 2001, Dr. Neil Goddard and Dr. Tim Donnelly introduced the Periodontal Quality Index, the PQI system, which was a 35-page sort of clinical study. And when I was introduced to the PQI, I got to meet Dr. Goddard, who is a national lecturer and a diplomat at the Academy of Periodontology. We sat down with sort of a brain trust of people, and we took that PQI index and we sort of boiled it down to just the raw need that we saw, which was we don't need this to be in sextants. We need to be able to diagnose the mouth in quadrants. Again, going back to my 4 parts. We came up with the idea of the StatCheck, meaning how quickly could we do an exam, a thorough exam, meaning pocket depth, gingival margin, furcation mobility, all that, but then quantify those quadrants. But just like what the PSR system tried to do, can we dumb it down? Hate to use that word, but how can we dumb it down so that patients get involved in it too?
Yeah, by the way, dumbing it down is not a bad word at all.
Good. I'm glad you agree.
I'm all about simplifying my life, including dentistry, and if it means, quote, dumbing it down, I love it because more people can do it. So, yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead and continue.
That's okay. Well, the crazy thing is what we found is, I'm a huge fan of numbers and not necessarily statistics, but numbers. I want real numbers. And what we did is we looked at a lot of practices, and statistically, 6% of the patients in practices are being charged for periodontal care.
Okay.
But we know that 75% of the patients were actually getting periodontal care and being charged out for preventive care. And that disconnect annoyed me a lot because, hey, I worked at the front desk. I knew what the proper codes were. I mean, I read Dr. Tom Lamoli's book way back in, the late 90s on dental insurance and reimbursement for perio. Mm-hmm. I knew what the rules were for perio, and I knew what the proper way to bill was. So I started taking people through a test, and I said, let me do this. Let me ask your hygienist a question. What percentage of your patients bleed on probing? What percentage have subgingival calculus? Mm-hmm. And what percentage have greater than 4 molar pockets? And, resounding responses, at least 60% of our patients have those things. And in combination.
Yep.
And we said, so why is it that the numbers are only saying that you're charging out 6% of care? And usually the answers were, well, insurance won't pay for it if we charge it out of perio. Or we can't get patients to say yes. So we started figuring out what's a better way to put this score into your office so that if you see this, then you do that. So as an example, the StatCheck scores are A through F. Really easy, just like in school.
Right.
All right. The A is asymptomatic. Really easy. All pockets in the quads are less than 4s, no bleeding on probing, no subgingival calculus. Good idea. All right. No clinical attachment loss. A B score, which we would say is bleeding, all pockets are good, and everything else is that. It's really just like an asymptomatic mouth, but there may be some fine scaling that needs to be done. A C score is calculus, and there is calculus someplace in the quad. Then we get to a D score, which is there's deeper pockets, there's bleeding on probing, there's subgingival calculus in that quad. Now, when we get to F, is a great way for us to introduce a relationship with a periodontist that says, when we get to our patients who are Ds and F, let's have a conversation about care where we can work together. And by doing that, we can't have two hygienists who are not on the same page. We have got a clearly defined path that says, if this, then that. If our A patient comes in, we're doing prophies. If our B patients come in, we're going to do a fine scale prophy. If we do C, then we're going to be scaling. If we're D, we're going to be scaling and maybe introducing site-specific anti-infectives or those kinds of things. So it's really clear that if we find these things in a quad, we have a definitive answer for where we're going on treatment. And what happened is we found that people were accepting care better because now if I say to you, hey, Bilal, I'm concerned that we have a B over here, but over here is a C. So I'd like to take you from that C to get you healthier in that quad. Patients were a lot more open to the care instead of saying, wow, you've got a 10 millimeter pocket and bleeding on probing and there's subgingival calculus, and I'm surprised that there's so much separation happening there. Well, of course, your patients are going, hey, a 10 millimeter pocket, I saw the movie with Bo Derek 10, that must be good. you know. So it normalized care. It made it work really well. But what we also realized, and I'm sure you'll appreciate this quote, you know, we realized that knowledge without application is a burden. A lot of these hygienists have the knowledge, they have the skill, they have the wherewithal, but they might have a doctor who walks in and says, well, Mrs. Jones looks okay, let's let her come back in 6 months. And that's where the disconnect was happening. Everybody wasn't on the same page with care. Everybody wasn't on the same page with philosophy of care. And it helped us to normalize that too. So, you know, we took that to a lot of offices, and Neil's still traveling the country talking about it today. He's got some unbelievable programs where he's talked about that. It goes beyond perio to some other cosmetics. The Stat Check program is actually a 4-part program. It's a smile evaluation. It's the perio evaluation. It's a functional evaluation. And it's also a lifestyle evaluation, because we're looking at your smile. I mean, I hate the word teeth. I think dentists who use the word teeth allow the patient to make a choice about a tooth. So if I say, you know, Mrs. Jones, what do we want to do about your smile? There typically isn't an answer like extract it.
Sure.
But if I say, Mrs. Jones, tooth number 9 is a little fractured, what would you like to do about it? You know, there is a legitimate answer to extract it.
Right.
So I like the idea of a smile evaluation. I love the idea of the Stat Check evaluation, the perio evaluation. The functional evaluation is what you do best. It's looking at the disease. It's looking at occlusion. It's looking at that. And then the lifestyle evaluation is what I always did, the front desk, which was, are you financially able to move forward with the care? So those are the 4 parts that make up the entire Stat Check evaluation.
I love it. Now, when I started talking with you a few weeks ago, it was kind of the first time I actually heard about the Stat Check. Mm-hmm. So is this a place or a system, or what is it? Now, if let's say I want to integrate it to my office, what do I have to go through to integrate something like this?
Well, this is the good part. It's free.
Oh.
And this is something that when we came up with it, now I say Dr. Neil Goddard and I came up with it, we published it. But there were, you know, a group of people who got together to put this program into place who we were looking for a way of really coming into practices and helping those practices succeed above and beyond this. Because getting a perio program in place, everybody has got up sort of a perio program. Everybody's got their own way of doing it. But what we found is that this sticks. This is, you know, there's a great book on marketing called, you know, and it tells you the concept is sticky. This concept sticks with a practice, and it can be handed from one hygienist to the next to a temp who comes in, across associates in a practice. Everybody stays clear on where the goal is. So we published this back in Dentistry Today. I think I sent you the article back in 2002, and we made it available for everybody. Just print it and use it. With the blessings of Dr. Goddard and myself, please use it, because what we found is that practices that use a program like this goes into other areas of the practice. We can go beyond this. We can get our hygienists doing better cosmetic evaluations so that, you know, you can move forward with better restorative care. Everything that we did helped to move the practice forward.
You know, but if I want to use this system, where would I go to learn? Not me. If I want my hygienists or me and my hygienist to learn the system, where would I need to go to learn about these things? I have the article, and I'll post it on their website, but we're not going to learn it from an article. Or maybe we are going to learn the whole thing from the article. Yeah,
actually, the entire Stat Check program is listed in that article. The A through F is all there. The difference is in the verbals.
Okay.
It's in the style. I mean, I have a good friend that says the reason I have brown eyes is because I'm so full of it. And it's because of the sales techniques that I've learned over the years. I've learned that if I step outside of dentistry when I talk to patients, they understand it more.
Yes.
I mean, the first time I had a perio exam, and, you know, it felt like somebody was sticking needles into my gums. You know, when I understood what they were doing, not if you hear me say 4 or greater, it's a problem. That means nothing to me as a patient. Right. What I needed to hear is, how am I doing? Am I doing better than my wife? She was in the chair earlier.
It's a competition.
Exactly. She came out and said that she had A's and B's. What do I get? You know, when I look at dentistry, I look at it from a patient-centric position. I look at it as, if you come up with a way of talking to me where, you know, we use the word dumbing down, where it makes sense to me and we are on the same plane, I'm fine. I don't need anything more than that. I just need a way of communicating with the office that, hey, look, you want me to buy your toothbrush. You want me to come more often. Why? What are we getting towards? Mm-hmm. And if I'm getting towards from my C to an A, I understand that. So that's why we put the program out there. And it's been great because I have people coming up to me at seminars I do all over the country who say, I didn't recognize you until you started talking, and then I remembered this article, and we have it posted up in our office, and we've been doing it since 2005, and I just glow. That's the reward that I get for doing it.
I love it. And I'll tell you why is, in my practice, we're just about to have our end-of-year meeting. Mm-hmm. Now, we tend to have two of them. Usually one of the days is when we completely close the practice down and we just have a staff. We just kind of look at 2014 and then we see what things we like, what we didn't like, and we look at 2015 and we plan the whole year in advance, basically. All the holidays, all the days, how we're going to improve the restorative department, the hygiene department, the front desk department. We have this goal-setting day, basically. And one of the things that happened is I talked with both of my hygienists just the other day. I said, I want you guys to figure out how we can up the game a little bit, up our service. And that doesn't mean how we have to charge anymore. I said, but I want people to leave with this idea of, wow, that was amazing. I want people to leave inspired. And I said, just start thinking about that. I'll think about this too, is what I was saying to them. And I think this is great. So I'm definitely going to print out these things and say, okay, here is some great information for you. Yeah. Let's look at this together and let's see what we can do. And so thank you for that.
Sure.
One other thing that stood out is it was interesting what you just said, which was actually a quote that you said something earlier, and I almost hit the floor when you said it. You said, knowledge without application is a burden. Mm-hmm. I've been saying that for a couple of years now. Remember, I said I like quotes. And a lot of people are like, what does that mean to you? I was like, when you have knowledge and you don't know what to do with it, or you don't know how to use it, it becomes a burden. You're better off not knowing the knowledge. At least it's not burdensome to you.
Yeah.
When you said that, I about hit the floor because I thought I came up with it.
Well, actually, you know what? That line comes from, I study comparative religions.
Ah.
And that's actually a commentary of the Quran.
Oh, well, I've never heard that.
The line is something like the similarity between a man who memorizes the Quran but doesn't understand it accurately is like a donkey who carries a load of books but doesn't understand them. So that's where the original line comes from.
That's interesting. I'm a Muslim by birth, so, okay. But I've never noticed it. So maybe I'm like the donkey with the books on his back. But no, I'm just joking. Anyway, let's move on a little bit here. Andre, can you give us one clinical or practice management advice or pearl that we can take to our practices tomorrow?
What I would suggest is everybody should have at least a staff meeting once a month, but try this in your staff meeting. I do this in my seminar on crew training. Get a card that's red on one side, or yes on one side, no on the other side. And all your staff members get one of these cards, yes or no. And ask everybody philosophy questions. We believe in our practice in replacing amalgams, and have everybody flip their cards over at the same time, yes or no. See where everybody believes you are in that idea. We believe that all our patients should leave our practice without removables, yes or no. We believe that everybody should pay at the time of service, yes or no. That is the most telling test that any practice can do. And if you do that Monday morning, it'll set the tone for where you go with the rest of your practice.
I absolutely love that. That's very good.
It's also very scary.
Well, I'm sure it is, especially as a practice owner, because you want to be the leader and just make sure you push everybody in the direction you want to go to. But I think to have that is fantastic. I love it. Andre, can you tell us about one thing that you do right now that is truly exciting you?
Well, the thing that's the most exciting in my life right now is the programs I've been doing right now with staff training. It's called Crew, and maybe we'll talk about that sometime in the future. But the idea behind Crew is, I'm from Philadelphia. It's a big rowing town, and one of the things that's different from the idea of team, which is together everyone achieves more, and crew is in a crew. If you're rowing, every oar has to hit the water at the same time, or the boat doesn't go in the right direction. Mm-hmm. So I love the idea of team building, but the idea of together everyone achieves more, I just don't buy it. I've been an employee. I've worked for practices. I've seen different opinions. I believe that there's an I in the word team. But I do believe that if everybody has a common goal, like in rowing, then you row the ship forward. You can leave and go home and do whatever you want, but as you work together, you are a crew.
So the acronym of crew means exactly what?
It means challenge, reflection, energize, and win. So as an example, I do it to my kids who would hate me for doing this, but I do it. They say, I'm getting bad grades. Okay, so your challenge is you want better grades. So let's reflect on it. So the reflection is, are you going to the library more often? Are you doing this more often? Are you studying? Is your girlfriend over while you're trying to study? Okay, so that's the reflection. Then the energy is the plan that you put into place to move it forward. And the W is the win, where we measure the outcome. You're an athlete. You look at your stopwatch when you're done with your routine to see how well you've done. And then you go back to say, okay, I've done this in a minute 2. So my challenge is, do I get it down to a minute? And let's reflect on that. What did I do the last time? What did my blood rate, what my heart rate was? You look at the energy and you look at the plan to get to that minute run. And then you look at your win again.
It's funny how even though what you're teaching dental teams to work better as a crew, as you would say, but you gave an example of athletics. And while you were explaining that, I was thinking, this could apply to anything in life, not just dentistry.
Yeah, it does.
It can apply to anything. I was just thinking about, okay, just for a second, I was sitting there going, wait, well, hold on. This could apply to schoolwork with my kids. And then you said schoolwork. And then I'm thinking, well, this could apply to athletics training. And you started saying that. My mind even wandered of me wanting to expand into real estate ownership and management and stuff like that, which I want to do in the next few years. And I said, well, this could apply to me doing that. And suddenly I was like, wow, this can apply to anything. So just for the record, for our listeners, I do want to bring Andre back for another episode one of these days to discuss crew, if that's okay with you, Andre.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so I know we're talking about stat check today because it was more clinical and I needed a little bit of clinical stuff. But I love the fact that we can discuss this in more detail in the future.
Sure.
So, Andre, tell us how we can connect with you, and then we can say goodbye.
Sure. I continue to do a lot of lecturing, so if anybody's in the Northeast area, I'll be at the Greater New York meeting, I'll be at the Yankee meeting. I'm always around speaking at different things. Like my dad would say, personal service, outstanding results. My personal cell phone is 484-437-5562. My email address is Andre, SYST, think systems, Andre, SYST @Comcast.net. And I always like for people to friend me at Facebook.com/Shirdan, SHIRDAN.
Well, Andre, this was absolutely fantastic. I really enjoyed this meeting. I really did. So I just want to thank you for taking the time and sharing your story with us. You're very, very generous with your time and your knowledge, and I really appreciate that. So I want to thank you once again on behalf of our listeners for that.
As they taught me to say at the Ritz-Carlton, it's my pleasure.
Wonderful. The pleasure has been mine. So you have a great day, and hopefully we'll see you in the real world.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to another episode of The Passionate Dentist. Please visit our website to find links, books, and downloads to all the resources our featured guests shared with us today. The Passionate Dentist is produced on my desk in my dental office in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. To reach me personally, please email me at info@thepassionatedentist.com.